so that they grow up knowing sharing. So when you take your child, you've packed the sausage, the apple and everything, they teach them to share amongst themselves. Don't come thinking because today I've packed maybe KFC, I've packed this is for my child. They have to teach that child to share with others. And sharing could also include the teachers.
Maybe it's the packings of KFCs that force the teachers to eat, because I'm imagining 2-year-old packing KFC.
Yes!
And, you know,
and I'm thinking, no wonder I've not seen very small teachers in Nasser. But anyway, we have to take you through our stories, local stories, but Robert will do that for us, and of course we'll be coming in with international stories, and Molly will also give us a sneak peek into an international story regarding climate, nature, and of course environment. Robert.
And we'll start with the fight against corruption in this country, where yesterday the First Lady and Minister for Education and Sports, Janet Museveni, called upon Ugandans to join the fight against corruption, a vice she said cannot only be defeated by government. Mrs. Museveni, who is also the national champion ambassador for integrity campaign, was launching the 2021 anti-corruption campaign at State House in Entebbe. The 2021 anti-corruption campaign is on the theme promoting active citizen participation in social accountability, which was launched yesterday. The campaign empowers citizens at grassroots to demand for accountability. The First Lady and National Champion Ambassador for the Integrity Campaign, Janet Museveni, decried a general weakness to fight corruption in society where citizens think it's the role of leaders in government. Mrs. Museveni hailed the NRM government for its people-centered programs that have been run by few selfish individuals. Minister for Ethics and Integrity, Rose Akelo Lily, said intimidating investors, delayed investigations and corruption syndicates are among the challenges facing corruption fight in the country. Away from the message re-echoing the fight against corruption, we now move to the Budgetary Presidential Committee that was launched yesterday, where the Prime Minister, Robin Anabanja, launched the Presidential Advisory Committee on Budget for this financial year. She emphasized focusing on priorities, fighting corruption, and called upon the committee to ensure accountability for the money allocated to the sector. The committee, chaired by Thomas Tayebwa, will advise government and identify critical areas for budget allocation. Focusing on the Presidential Manifesto, the Presidential Advisory Committee, consisting of 25 members, was launched by the Prime Minister Nabanja and assigned the roles by the President to ensure set priorities are fulfilled. The Prime Minister, Robin Nabanja, emphasized attention to prioritize people's needs. The committee will address corruption to ensure accountability. She called upon the committee to monitor government projects on ground and make sure there is value for money. The chairperson of the committee, Thomas Tayebwa, called upon the committee and said they will ensure that the budget is not distorted by Parliament. Strategies will be laid to bring more people on the tax-paying bracket as honesty with the resource envelope. We now move to health, where the Ministry of Health is set to vaccinate a targeted number of 8.5 million children against polio. The vaccination targets children from 0 to 5 years of age, and parents have been urged to embrace the exercise. The Ministry of Health and partners will start the polio vaccination targeting 8.5 million children for 5 years and below. Recently, the country reported cases of polio type 2. Polio is a viral infection highly contagious among children of 5 years and below. As the country prepares to commemorate World Polio Day, due on the 24th of October, the Ministry of Health will start massive vaccination of children to prevent entry of few polio variants into the country. The Ministry of Health has strengthened the surveillance at border points. The Ministry of Health will conduct countrywide sensitization to inform the parents and guardians to embrace the polio vaccination exercise. And finally, from the local scene, members of Parliament have called for designation of the Chief Justice and Constitutional Affairs Minister pending the appointment of a substantive portfolio holder. This follows a move by the Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee of Parliament to deny the Deputy Attorney General audience during committee proceedings. The committee chairperson, Robina Rakojo, said the absence of a substantive minister has stalled committee activities, something that the Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Oulanyah, disagrees with. This was a procedural issue for which Gomba West Member of Parliament, Robina Rakojo, sought guidance from Parliament. Rakojo claimed that the absence of a Justice and Constitutional Affairs Minister was derailing activities of the Legal and Parliamentary Committee Affairs. This did not earn listening ear from the Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Oulanyah. Neither an appeal nor an explanation was enough to convince the Speaker. Jacob Oulanyah's argument is in agreement with the recent clarification made by the ICT and National Guidance Minister, Chris Baryomunsi. However, some members of Parliament insist that a substantive Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs must be appointed to address operational gaps.
Into our international stories, and looking at our first story, UK under pressure to reimpose restrictions as COVID cases soar. Now, some COVID restrictions must immediately be introduced. If England is to avoid stumbling into a winter crisis. Now, health leaders also came out to make warning. Now, the NHS Confederation said, Minister, Plan B backup strategy, including mandatory face coverings, crowded places and enclosed spaces should be implemented with the SOPs. Now, UK has also been rising sharply, but deaths are well below the winter peak. Government says it has absolutely no plan to bring back measures, but it's keeping a very close eye on the data. Now, in other stories, an Oxford professor abused position with sexist and drunken conduct. Prominent British universities are not dealing with complaints of sexual harassment effectively and appearing more prepared to dismiss them than punish the perpetrators, according to evidence gathered during the 2-year investigation. Now, the investigation, Degrees of Abuse by Al Jazeera's investigation unit, reveals how British universities, including Oxford, Cambridge, Glasgow and Warwick, deal with complaints of sexual harassment, sexist, drunken behavior and coercive control. Now, Al Jazeera also identified 2 professors at the University of Oxford who follow academics and students say have abused their positions of authority with sexist and drunken behavior. It also revealed that the universities where the 2 teach failed to protect female students from sexual harassment. Now, crossing back to Africa, where we see Somalis getting death threats over UK PM's killing. While we see an organization supporting Somalians living in the UK says its members have been receiving death threats since the killing of the British PM Sir David Ames. Now, David Ames was stabbed multiple times during a regular Friday meeting with his Southend West constituents. Ali Habi Ali, the 25-year-old British man of Somali heritage, is being held under the Terrorism Act over killing. His father, Habi Ali Mkulen, was also previously an advisor to Somali's Prime Minister and a representative to the Council of Somali Organization. Now, he has told BBC's Charlotte Glatter that Somalis and the people of Somalia heritage have been receiving death threats since the murder of the subject.
On Africa, we look at a report released yesterday by the World Meteorological Organization, where over 100 million people in Africa are threatened by climate change. Now, a new report by the United Nations has warned that more than 100 million people extremely poor across Africa are threatened by the accelerating climate change that could melt away the continent's few glaciers within 2 decades. A report released on Tuesday by the World Meteorological Organization presented a grim reminder that Africa's 1.3 billion people remain extremely vulnerable as the continent warms more and at a faster rate than the global average. And when the continent's 54 countries are responsible for less than 4% of greenhouse gas emissions worldwide, by 2030, it is estimated that up to 111 and 18 million extremely poor people will be exposed to drought, floods, and extreme heat in Africa if adequate response measures are not put in place, said Joseph Lionel Psycho, the Commissioner of Rural Economy and Agriculture at the African Union Commission.
That's what's basically trending internationally, and of course we gave you a look into what is on our local scene. But away from all those, we want to give you a poll question so you can be able to be a part of our show with your true opinion, sense, and of course your views. Now, our poll question is: what is your opinion on government phasing out grade 3 certificate and grade 5 diplomas for teaching, for teachers trainings? What is your opinion on government phasing out grade 3 certificates and grade 5 diplomas for teachers trainings? Well, of course, this is a story that did break also the news headlines quite well. We see that they want to phase them out and probably either come up with a solution of retraining, or actually people should be going back to university. This has been also a discussion. I remember the point when teachers were told that all of them must have a degree from universities. Well, as you're saying, is never tired to learn, relearn, and unlearn. Robert.
Well, how about those who are really like they have already aged for now? They are not looking to go back to school for their degrees.
I think they should be retired.
But now it's like, no, there is aged not to retirement, but you're like in your 40s, retirement
Is that
age.
aged?
Yeah,
Well,
at that
actually,
age, people feel
Felix.
going back for a
just one
degree,
moment. I remember when I
really?
was in school, I went to, one of our classmates was now the late Amon Muzora. This man was over almost 60-something.
Yeah.
We did the course for
One of the
5 years.
things I think that government is talking about is not
these guys are
those.
going to lose their jobs. That's
It's not those in the
Yeah.
system, but these training institutions. For example, after senior 4, one would apply for a certificate. That is what they're
So the ones
phasing out.
already teaching don't get affected.
Are not going to be affected. But now you cannot apply. They are looking
the
at, you can't
trainings
apply
now.
for a training to do a certificate in these institutions because they will not be teaching that.
Wow.
Yes.
Robert brings it into context now. It makes actually sense. So be able to share your sense, your thoughts, and your opinions about phasing out grade 3 and 5 at this point. But Robert also is holding Hallelujah ginger tea and Hallelujah tamarind drink. Robert, what is in it for us today?
Well, our grandparents lived for a long time because they were consuming things in their natural form. So what is happening today, it could be hard for you to get the turmeric, it could be hard for you to get the ginger, to get the lemon, and the ingredients in this bottle. But Earlier Reflexology have gotten them for you, condensed them, and packaged them in this bottle. So at only 1,500, you can get lemon, you can get ginger, you can get turmeric, you can get so much that is going to boost your immune system. So go to the nearest supermarket, nearest shop, and purchase this bottle. It will greatly boost your immune system.
Well, of course, all of you, our viewers, be able also to catch us on our social media platforms. We do stream live on Facebook, on YouTube, and of course on Twitter. You can get us. But guess what? Today, our director chose to give us a old school before Thursday. Maybe he will be telling us. But the song for Brenda Fassie, and I know Ruben must be the inspiration for this song. And that song is called Wedding Day. Some of you who are married, do you ever remember your wedding day? What are some of the things you pick out and like, wow, this day was... When we come back, Robert will tell me, and Molin, later on in nature and weather environment, will be telling us what her ideal wedding will look like. Let's take a break and let's have ourselves for the day.
I'm telling you.
I know, I can, in just 1 minute, sneak into
A Christmas tree dress.
No. Don't be surprised if she has a grass and leaf dress as a nature pass. But anyway, let's take a break. We'll be having our song for the day. We'll be coming back with Robert and we'll be looking at our newsreel. Good morning.
this is something that over time our president has said it is, yes, a human right, but a provocation to victims of people who this suspect could have committed, suspected allegedly to have committed an offense, say in issues of murder and other capital offenses. He says, much as it is a right, but let's also be considerate. How would you feel if a person, for example, has murdered your wife, your child, your son, and in just a couple of days is back in community protected because it is a right? How fair is fair in this time? So with me and Felix, this is what we are going to be discussing. We've seen Parliament, we've seen the legal body, that is Uganda Law Development Society, coming up. We've seen the justices of all courts in Uganda saying no, it has to be a discretion of the judge, and let's look at all this. So with me, I have Nkunda, whom I first want to get his angle when it comes to better understanding. Felix, many times, this generation of late, human rights have become human rights. We say they are God-given. Even when it comes to this issue, someone says you can't deprive a suspect of a right to bail. It is their right, and this would be unconstitutional.
Yeah, you see, maybe just to give you a brief background on how we get to the notion that you think is disturbing this generation, the human rights notion, or that discussion of human rights. There's a conceptual background into this that springs back as far as if you've heard of a statement called Ubuntu. Ubuntu. It's a Bantu word that has been used very much in the Savannah area as where it falls majorly. And this has been, this particular statement or word is very much popular from the Horn of, as you come from basically West Africa, crossing to Central, later on East, West, then you'll end down in South Africa. It's a very common venture. And if you've been to the people majorly in South Africa and about maybe middle Zimbabwe, South Africa, Lesotho, there you do notice that the word Ubuntu was first concretely used around that area. Now, and it was meant to bring out the true belief of humanness, the appreciation of each other as human beings, Ubuntu. Now, having appreciated the trueness, the evidence, the fact that we are human beings, later on, we start to appreciate the human nature of being. Now, that then would mean that there are things we can do to each other and there are things we cannot do. Now, because we appreciate the humanness in us, there are things we can't do to each other. That's why, and because of that, under customary practices, law was crafted. Because appreciating that Kirabo is a human being and I slapped you, that would inflict pain. And from that, many offenses have been got. For example, you go to the law of torts, you do realize that there are offenses like assault, or when you go to trespass to person, there's assault, battery, all these. They come from the concept, again, they work backward towards the Ubuntu concept. What I'm trying to paint is that the realization of, or the appreciation of each other as human beings is the backbone of human rights. Now, when we noticed as a human species that I am dealing with a fellow person or human being, there must be safeguards to protect the humanness or the humaneness of this being. And that's how human rights started rising. And the human rights were very much aided by the uprisings and the oppressions. In Africa in particular, the oppressions of the colonial masters. Okay, or later on they were called the intruders. If you remember what happened in Rwanda, the first genocide, that some of these were eye-openers. If you remember that we had people who used to take abroad to fight wars, these were eye-openers. Now see what happened in South Africa. This is most recent. South Africa is almost, it's not so far. The apartheid. All these were contributors to appreciate, actually, because before all these happenings, human rights was narrow.
More if you look back.
They were narrow. They were about battery, assault. Battery, assault. You can't beat Kirabo. You can't assault Kirabo. In fact, there were human rights then. They were by far perpetrated by cultural leaders. Because it is them, after the whites and the Indians and what, that proceeded with those practices as slaves. You get it? Because some people in some kingdoms were slaves. What? I remember there was even a saying, I don't know how true it is, that when the king wanted to put his spear down, someone had to put their foot. So that's why you see all those names used to come from such kind of practices. So with
that rich background regarding human rights,
from that kind of life, we formed human rights. Yes. But modern day human rights has advanced with the coming into place of the United Nations. Now, the United Nations brought into play a universal appreciation of human rights. That away from appreciating human rights as the Bantu, let us appreciate human rights on a universal spectrum. That a Kirabo who's a Puerto Rico, you get it, will have an appreciation of human rights just as an Opio in Gulu. When we talk about bail, it is not a discussion only for Ugandans. You go to Kuala Lumpur, the discussion is there because it is a standard, it is a universal appreciation of that. Now, it was incumbent, having passed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it was incumbent to all member states to domesticate this through their constitutionalism, furthermore, even statutory instruments. So it is serving an obligation. However, not forgetting, and this is where now we are seeing the ability of cabinet to pass it, the president talk about it, and us to even debate about it, that in as much as we may subscribe to that generally, we don't lose sovereignty. Because remember, law is legislated for purposes of a particular society. And that's why some of us, when you're teaching, you tell students that law is these are rules and regulations that govern a specific that you must add, because there's no way you're going to apply the chapter 4 of the Constitution of Uganda to Sudan.
Yes,
it is contrary.
So looking at that domestication of the law, and of course Uganda being an independent state, though we ratified some of these universal declarations, Felix, there is a problem that is facing us right now, where it is believed that this right may, in one way or the other, not promote true justice, in a sense that it doesn't really, law is meant to solve problems. So we know that we have a longer period of our justice system in terms of delivering judgments. So a person then is entitled to bail at that particular time as investigations, as the hearing, as the judicial process is going on. Here the president says, look, let's understand. First, its implication to the person or the family of these victims. Then second, let's look at what does it really mean in terms of pushing for justice. He looks at both these angles and says, we must revise this.
You see,
for certain offenses.
When you go to the law of or the constitutionalism, Robert, when they are crafting the constitution, the true belief is that it's a reflection of the livelihood, the way of life of that society. The Odochi Commission I think it started around 94, 93, around there, to start birthing this, try and prepare for the birth of this constitution. They moved around the country, the commission inquired, and all these things. Now, when they put some of these articles in the constitution, they were reflecting what they had gathered.
By then?
One would say that.
By then and relevant at that time?
There's a reason why the constitution, they put in the concept of amendment, which covers of what you're trying to say. The times change.
Yes.
What was the criminality level then? And what was the nature of crime? You get it? Maybe then we used to have chicken thieves, thieves with, but today we are talking about vijambia.
Kidnappers, people asking for ransom.
However, even if you seek to change with times in terms of legislation, you must keep at the backbone of your mind the bedrocks of legal practice. And that's why you see other players are coming in to say that is going to be an encroachment on human rights. Let's just talk about human rights in terms of bail. Human rights are given and they must be appreciated. They also give you when they are limited. In terms of a sentence, when there's incarceration, you can't talk about right to freedom to movement when you're incarcerated or when you've been sentenced to serve somewhere in prison or something. So the law provides for all this. However, the biggest connotation, and when I listen to His Excellency continuously, and it's unfortunate that the people he's talking to don't seem to hear.
Or to buy into
No. If you want my honest opinion, let me give you an example. When we were kids, your father would call you, Robert. Yes. Well, then he says, wali batundawo soda. You get that? Kaduka ka, if he said Ruben, batundawo soda. Then you, as a stupid one, you come and say, yes. Then you go back. Now, not knowing he's telling you, genda onkolechi, you go and buy for me
soda.
Yeah, he doesn't have to say, you go and buy soda. He asks you, do they sell soda there? Now you, as a sensible child, the next thing would be, Daddy Bampe Sente, ndendete soda. Now, the president cannot, on more than 5 occasions, talk about the same thing. And before judicial officers, and you, the officers, do not find a way to revise. You get the point. And he has not said that when you get someone who is in laundering, he's particular. He's particular. I've not seen him talk. When he talks about bail, he talks about capital
offenses.
He is particular. And this is where I think the judiciary is also letting us down. I want to believe that we didn't have to go to the point of amending the Constitution. You see, the Constitution must maintain its sanctity.
Then, Felix, I write like, if you're to go by not amending the Constitution, then where would we get the legal mandate?
No. If you're talking about discretion
of
a judicial officer, you don't need, you just have to make a matter of practice. Not everything that the judiciary does, by the way, is in law. As long as an element of practice has the word discretion, it means you judge something as it appears before you. And let me tell you, and by the way, this is also somewhere I think there's not the right information. The president is not getting the right information about this bail thing. Robert, in Uganda today, do you know how hard is it to get bail for someone on a murder case? And I want you to ask any lawyer you know in town.
But on the contrary, Felix, it seems...
Robert, let me tell you, and I'm telling you from experience, bond, bail, anything to do with murder, rape, when someone is there could be isolated cases. But Robert, I can tell you, talk to any lawyer in Kampala, that it was easy for me to get bail for someone who murdered.
If it is that hard, Felix, there are many prominent people I know that have gone on murder cases. They are suspects, and many of them have gotten bail.
I love the fact that you've said they are prominent.
Prominent people, yes.
Maybe that's
the reason. It seems it's the obvious for them.
Maybe that's the reason.
So and so, let me use some that have been convicted.
If you read into the book of Animal Farm,
Godi, it is just a matter of, yes, he has been paraded. The next, the lawyers are working on bail, and he's out.
Those are isolated cases, Robert.
So
but
what
on a spectrum of 100 murder cases, between you and me, I don't think 8 of them, 80 can't get bail.
So would we say that this bail has been a privy to the rich?
It is you who said prominent people, you know.
Because this, I would, even if you are to look at the last maybe 50 or 70 cases of murders where prominent people have been suspects, I want to tell you, go to the likes of this guy of Pine, though he finally got a conviction, got Hussein. I want to look at those that have been convicted. All of these people have once been out.
That's why I'm saying, out of 100, 80 don't get.
So that's
is that bad?
It has been discriminatory.
Even if you're marking a child, Robert, in class, out of 100, 80 don't get the bail.
But if you are to go, Felix, and look at the 80 that have not gotten, what has been failing them to access bail?
It's judicial discretion.
Then what has been aiding
let me
these
tell
ones?
you the criteria of, you see, bail is a very simple thing, by the way. Because it is a right, you're not asked to prove so much. If you, I know you've been in court before. You know what they ask you. They'll ask you sureties. They must be well identified, and by that, addresses, what passport. Then, depending on how the matter is being handled before court, they will ask maybe for you to place in your passport and what. Then they'll tell you to pay in either cash or non-cash. All those. Now, the question is, when you bring a law to distract the most current bail process, does that reduce on criminality? Because law, when you start legislation, and these are the questions we are going to ask the Parliament and His Excellency, and probably the members of Cabinet, how does this directly work into reducing the crime rate? Don't you think one of the reasons why shouldn't we be discussing expeditious judicial processes than amending the law? Because if the problem, if we say that any capital offense should be dealt with in not at least 6 months.
Political offenses.
No, 6 months. We shall go to political. 6 months, because they'll tell you the gymnastics. They tell you evidence, witnesses. Okay, let's say 6 months to 1 year.
Must be dealt with.
A capital offense should be dealt with. If council and state cannot, then they give direction. How about we get into that discussion? But also with the nitty-gritties of with the evidence in terms of capital offenses. With the witnesses, because of our poor witness protection laws, don't you think we should work on these other circumstantial things? Because the law alone does not guarantee a change in the criminal practices of the country.
Well, for me, Felix, I beg to be a bit contrary on this. For me, I believe the tighter a law is, in one way or the other, it is deterrent. For example, if a person says, I'll give an example of a case that I know went through the judicial system and was dealt with, that is Hussein Godi when he murdered Rehema. For example, if a person knows that murdering a wife or killing your wife, these homicides, once you're caught and you go through the legal system, there is no bail for you. I think this will be deterrent. Then when a person knows that even if I maybe kill such a person and then the legal procedure continues, I'll just go, get my bail, and I'll be out. Recently, there was a case, I think it was in Mukono, of a family where their daughter was killed by some medical practitioner. This guy had gone back to court to ask so that he leaves the country, and I think he goes and he does a PhD in medicine. So these are some of the things that a person finds it so easy that yes, even if an offense is committed, even if a capital offense is committed, what is going to happen? I'll be arrested. You know, some cases have lived for even 5-10 years, even 5-10 years. So what does that mean? That Felix, you go ahead with your normal business because you're still a suspect. Then you're out. You can even influence, meet Robert, these witnesses, buy them off, have good lawyers, bribe, go through the judicial system. See, I think this is a deterrent in one way or the other.
Let's talk about the judicial existence, like it's a market vendors association. We have credible people there, and I can give you a list of people,
they are credible people
that have gone through.
But
for example,
I also Felix, no.
Yourself have just given us an example. Some of the cases, the guy of Pine, this guy who shot, is it Akena somewhere? They have many cases. I mean, but Robert, let's be honest. I think we all have a share of blame in terms of what's happening. When you read, if you are privileged to read about criminology and penology, what informs crime? Robert, if you think a type of legal regime, it is actually not the first on deterrency. Because if that was the case, people would not be stealing. Every day, Robert, they ban thieves. And they burn one here, tomorrow they burn another one there. Yesterday they burned. You've seen this, Robert.
Where it is rampant,
but why don't people stop?
No, if Felix.
Haven't you, even you in somewhere in where you stay, Robert, you know that today they could have burnt someone, tomorrow another one.
Finally, they will stop.
Now,
for us in traditional justice, we know how that works. It is a deterrent.
When you talk about this law to deter criminals,
yes,
it works to a smaller extent.
Okay.
You have talked about sophistication of crime. Crime is no longer like it used to be. Away from these people who kill people, then they put in septic tank. Away from those are sophisticated, those are few.
Light.
But yeah, but we have people who have guns. They shoot people. People attacked a general in broad daylight. They killed the daughter. Do you think the problem is because there was absence of a law in terms of bail? Was that the cause? Can you relate the two? Can't we have the true discussion in the gun policy? Who has guns? You're talking about sophistication. You're looking at cyber people. People start all these things on, they follow people.
Then that
So
also
the discussion should not be narrowed to the legal regime. Let us open the discussion. And I want to tell you, as a scholar of criminology and penology, that it is not at mostly a cause of or the absence of good laws or the presence of very good laws that will deter crime. Let's look at them. For example, go to corruption. Can I break for you the institutions have that deal with corruption in Uganda? Why is it still there?
Do you know why they are failing? Is
Do you know how
because
many people they have arrested?
No, Felix, it's because you have the good laws, but you're not implementing them because of certain problems.
Thank you so much.
You have the good laws.
In fact, you're making all this easy. Now that the good law is coming, how sure are you it will work?
If we can do the following.
Is an if.
If we can do the following. One, empower the investigation arms of government.
Now,
two,
does that need for us to repeal or to appeal the bail for us to empower investigations?
Staffing, because if you have very few judges, the way you're talking about expeditiously handling these cases, where is the ability?
And that's the thing, Robert.
You have very few judges.
It's the thing I'm saying.
They cannot do that.
It's the thing I'm saying, Robert. Everything you're saying has no relationship with the bail. I don't know what's the relationship between bail and an investigator. Maybe, or a bad investigation. Maybe someone will say, this person got bail and is antagonized my, I don't know. Then that would mean the police is not professional in doing its work. You're talking about the staffing, the backlog. What's the relationship between that and bail? That's why I'm saying, how about we exploit
don't you think
other
some of
circumstantial
Don't you think some of these
aspects
issues you're alluding to, for example, the backlog issue, could also even have an implication or a connotation of people who go out on bail and start influencing investigations and witnesses?
And that means the judge can't come to deliberate on cases? How?
That's why you see some cases are dealt with very fast, others live for ages. And you wonder, what is the criteria? What is the
the relationship could be bail, really, Robert?
Because if this person is out, they have all the other avenues. They have the money, they have the potential to. But also, Felix, another point I want us to look at is when the president looks at this as a provocation to justice regarding the families, the moral aspect of it. You see, something may be legally right, but morally wrong. I want your opinion.
And what takes precedent, morality and law?
No, because at the end of the day,
I'm also asking you, if it's a friendly question, what takes precedent, morality and law?
I know as a human rights activist and as a lawyer, you want to say precedence, but I don't want to say. But law should have also a connotation and a background of morals that is acceptable. Felix, there isn't any justification for a family that has lost a daughter, that has lost someone due to, and they have a suspect or someone suspected in this case, seeing this very person loitering around. That is why issues like mob justice keep on coming out, because people feel...
Courts sit to deliberate matters of law, not matters of morality. Otherwise, you're going to see courts compelling everyone to kneel down. So I don't think that you want to pull courts into a discussion of morality. That's not their work. Courts sit to adjudicate matters basing on facts in law and facts as presented by officers of court. So it's unfortunate there's a morality connotation, but the issues of court are not morality. Because court cannot compel your wife to say good morning. That is, there if you want that, you go to the Sengas and the mothers. But courts would adjudicate matters of law. It's as simple.
Well, we know this is a discussion that can go on and on, but we are waiting to see what will come out of Parliament, the Cabinet, and will we see maybe an amendment to the current laws, and hence have the issue of bail dealt with, either for these capital offences that a person will not get it, or will we see what Felix talks about law and morals, which will take precedent in one way. When we return, we'll be looking at what is in the print media. Keep it with us.
You know, you could just buy a new smartphone from anywhere in Uganda. Dial *175 *94 hash to activate their 100% double data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles for 3 months. Better yet, you automatically receive free 1 GB valid for 30 days. You are hooked already, aren't you? Enjoy 100% double data bonus from Airtel. Buy a smartphone from anywhere in Uganda and insert an Airtel SIM card. Dial *175 *94 hash to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles, valid for 3 months. Dial *175 hash and select your preferred bundle to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles, valid for 3 months. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Getting GoTV was the best decision James has ever made. Finding a good place to watch football was never easy, but it was costly. Until James discovered something big. Now he can finally enjoy the benefits of home-grown advantage with a decoder and 1 month of GoTV value. For just 25,000 shillings, enjoy the world's biggest leagues and cap competitions. GoTV Uganda, love it.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
A lovely morning, and thank you for keeping it on UBC TV, where we make it our mandate to ensure that you kickstart your day a very informed person, because you began the day with us. So every weekday, start the day with us from 6:30 till the hour of 9, because we have so much that is relevant to see you sail throughout the day. Let's begin by also looking at what is trending in the print media. We have the New Vision, the Daily Monitor, and the Daily Nation. Now the New Vision has a big headline there. Shimoni PTC becomes Teachers University. As we look at phasing out of certificate and Diploma 5 institutions in the teaching fraternity. Then Mitchell guilty of sexual assault. That is the coach of the national team there. Then also, well, science and major breakthroughs here. UPDF produces battle vehicle. And we see His Excellency there. Yoweri Museveni Center speaking to senior army officers led by the commander of the land forces, Lieutenant General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, after commissioning a battle that is vehicle. Then the education sector, 5-year performance. There is the Minister for Education and Sports, Janet Kataha Museveni, gives you that. Then tribute to Chivenjere Mond there, and foreign news, DRC Congo accuses round of incursion there. And also we look at education, where there is a Senior 2, Senior 3 work, biology, English, chemistry, and geography there for you.
Monitor S1, S5 selection set for Monday. That's something quite good to hear. And why are urban real estate prices so high? Now, experts push for customary land registry in new law. But of course, also, General Museveni commissions UPDF built war vehicle. And one of my colleagues was asking me, why shouldn't the army also build some ambulances? Because since we don't have war. But anyway, Olanya expects hot debate on bail reforms, and media icon loud hope Chivenjere. Now, still inside the papers, we're looking at Mulago to conduct 100 free brain tumor operations, and Kopolo jailed 20 years for killing Sebuli May. Now, of course, from the archives, that is Kumna Mali, the then managing director of Mukwano Industries, shows the president of, that is Djibouti, products made by the factory. But also today in history, Museveni addresses a rally in Fort Porto in 1985, October 20th. Libyan dictator Gaddafi is killed. Wow. The Khan was killed today in 2011. How did we miss that?
Well, back to the new vision, we begin with a COVID-19 tracker, where new confirmed cases are 22, positivity rate is 0.8%, then new death is at 2, and total death stands at 3,187. Once again, please perfect the SOPs so that we avoid the transmission of COVID-19. But very importantly is go and get your jab so that we fight death due to COVID-19, severe illness, and hospitalization. The vaccines are readily available in all gazetted centers. Still looking at the new vision, today in history, it was on this date, the 20th of October, the year 204, when Anti-AIDS School was launched at Mulago, that is hospital, by President Yoweri Museveni, who opened the teaching complex at Mulago Hospital. Still the same day, like Felix said, the new vision also brings you the late Libya Muammar Gaddafi. Once Uganda's great friend. We also look at pictorials. Here we have your landmarks, and they give you Chitagata Hot Springs, where we believe many have visited. But also, Karamajong here doing some skills in dancing. The new vision gives you more of that in terms of refugees in Burundi. Refugee return home and they celebrate.
Now in sports, UEFA Champions League, troubled Man United host Atlanta at Old Trafford with manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer under scrutiny. And of course, back home, make home tilt counts there. We see Crested Cranes start their African Cup qualifications at home to Ethiopia, having started their previous round away. Now Mitchell guilty, given break by employer. Fufa here. Now Oduke positive about growth, and 4 not out for cricket Cranes. Now Uganda gears up for Africa meet, and Masaba 10 URS stars closer to full recovery. But also India bound national, that is Kabaddi team, get head start.
In the New Vision Sport this morning, Cranes coach convicted. That's the Mitchell story. Then catch-up game, where we see Arua and the spotlight. Today they bring you, that is the 8th of the 12 parts, that is of Arua, where we are looking at sports in that part of this country. Uganda top, that is Uganda finally spent the night at the top of the ICC Men's T20 World Cup Sub-Region Africa Group A qualifiers. But don't forget that Ruben will be here to give you all the updates in the world of sports and those interesting stories there for you. But let's look at the Daily Nation.
Now in the Daily Nation, a test for Uhuru and Ruto. Now rift between the two has put country's politics on high octane, where we see there's much to look out for. Now we're looking at that is Mudavadi calls for incentive instead of promise for youth. Ruto and takes on Uhuru, and Raila cites betrayal from boss, and 3 Mount Kenya governors endorse ODM boss Raila Odinga. And of course, Kalonzo, graft has eroded heroes and sacrifice. Now we see much of that, of course, much political activity there ahead of the elections of Kenya 2022. Well, of course, much of that, be able to catch it when you get yourself copies of the papers. But away from that, Molen is on the other side, and she will be giving us a few of the comments that you have made in terms of our poll question. Yes, Molen.
Coming in, and I will start with one coming in from Tony Kent, that is at Magic 100. He says the requirement of a degree qualification is a good move, but 4 years is questionable. And secondly, is government going to harmonize teachers' remunerations? Finally, even if for their tutors or trainers, masters is a must position. Good move it is, and we shall hopefully have a cream of teachers in our institutions. Oh, that's a nice one right there. Yes.
We discuss education and also the extension of academic qualifications. How about we have an open discussion into the payment? That's the thing. That's a good thing. Let's have the same discussions parallel to each other. Let's discuss qualification. Let's discuss payment. Where we have seen most recent, there's promises for science teachers on how this will be accumulative very soon. But let's have the true discussions. Robert.
Well, for me, I think this is a good move, more so when the way government has started with it. Phase out institutions, we've just seen Shimoni now into a university, so it is automatic that you won't have people opting for certificates or diplomas at that level in the education sector. So someone will know that to become a teacher, this is the level at which one must start. But also the issue of payment, it's very important. I think the education sector, teachers have suffered for a long time, yet they do a noble cause. It is time that we also think of how do we empower them, how do we motivate them. SARA is one of our motivation way, I believe, and this will properly later trickle into the quality and the care being given in these schools.
All right.
So that means even the motivation goes on to the training, and now I think it also continues to show them that you can go ahead and train for degrees and masters. But also coming in from Derek in Makinde, he says, good morning Felix, Robert and Molen. I think government needs to be more careful with its decisions sometimes. Phasing out grade 3 students when the education sector is one of the most hit sectors in the country due to COVID-19. Students have been home for quite a long period of time and still they are, but the government is coming up with such complicated decisions as a solution. So let them forelook some issues before they decide. That is coming in from Derek. He thinks that this decision shouldn't be rushed.
Anyway, I know for a matter of fact this will be well deliberated by the relevant parties. Parliament will have its input, and I think stakeholders, teachers and their bodies will also have their input. Anyway, Molen will be giving us some more of that later on, but for now let us get into traffic, and Molen will be telling us how and where we're going to go. But later on probably she'll crown it up with telling us, remember the other question we started with, and Robert will be back with a GMU agenda, and he will be discussing a matter of national importance, as he calls it.
You guys still have a question of about the wedding? Guess what? I do have a whole list of the to-dos for my wedding, so it can't be a conversation of just a few minutes. I think it will have to be outside the studio, and I tell you all about it. My wedding is this. If you have watched the movie My Big Greek Wedding, it is something like that.
Robert, now we have a movie to watch over the weekend. Anyway, let's leave you with Molen.
That is Felix, every woman has her dream wedding. I remember one artist who surprised us when she came in a dress that was more similar like a Christmas tree, and she said, since I was a girl, I dreamt when I'm putting on this dress that is lightening like a Christmas tree.
But you know what she said when she was entering?
But
anyway, let's pass on to Molen. She'll be giving us what's happening in terms of traffic.
So we do want to start off from that is also the Northern Bypass Highway, but also there is a red zone trying to build up. That is along the Nyonyintono roundabout. Now, as you're heading towards Nyonyintono, that roundabout, there is a little bit of traffic, but that will immediately clears off as you head to Nyonyintono. I think a lot of that clearing is because of the highway that is on that road. But also continuing, the one coming from Hoima Road, that is Wakiso Nansana towards the Northern Bypass, is also a little bit of orange. So that means it's just small traffic you can move through and continue. And also still on the Northern Bypass, you head to Waise. That is where we're seeing more traffic, also close to the roundabout. If you're coming from this area, that is Northern Bypass, towards Waise, and especially if you're continuing to Bombo Road, that is towards this area, that is why you see a lot of red. So that means that there is traffic building up, and also still towards Makere. Now, after the roundabout, if you are taking this Sir Apollo Road, there is traffic building up, but it clears a little more as you head forward. Now, also continuing into Naweru, we see it now starts to clear after that Waise roundabout. You look at the green, that means there is no traffic, but as you head towards Mulago, then traffic starts building up. You see that red line there. That indicates it actually stretches a little bit long as you're heading towards Gayaza Road. So that is where the traffic is. Then you continue as you head into town. Also Binaisa Road, you look at this traffic that is starting to build up away from Gayaza Road if you are taking this road towards Binaisa Road, but it's a double lane. You look at traffic on one side, that is if you are headed this way. Now, more of the traffic building up is across Yusufure and Kira Road. Now, there is some deep red, meaning that there is a lot of traffic building up, but the good news is that it's only a small part of the road. As you continue forward towards Acacia Mall, that area is a little bit clear. So you just have to deal with that traffic around the roundabout towards Yusufule. We look at it starting to clear up, but also more as you head towards Wandegea from Binaisa Road. There is traffic there towards the roundabout and also within the roundabout itself. So you look at that traffic there, but it's also just a short distance. And again, it clears. Now, as you head into town, that is to the central Kampala, then you look at more of the traffic that is just starting to build up. Useful Ray actually clears. We look at only the orange there, but there is more traffic that actually builds up. That is along Nile Avenue as you're heading towards here. You look at more clearing up towards Uganda Golf Club here. That traffic actually builds up, but then just a short distance it clears as you move on into the heart of Kampala. That is a little bit of traffic, but away from that, I will take you into what is happening today across the world of weather. Now, the satellites over our country are showing us mostly building up rainy conditions. That is from Lake Victoria, where you see the deep red, orange to blue colors. That is where we have rains even for now, but mostly on the islands of Lake Victoria. We have more that are headed towards the central part of Lake Victoria Basin, that is across Kampala, and also towards Masaka. That area can expect to have rains as the morning progresses. We already have those rains across Midwestern. That is parts of Masindi, Hoima already having wet weather conditions, but much of the country is still having intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions. We will be looking at forecast later, but for now I want to dissect more, and we look at a report that was released yesterday, that is by the World Meteorological Organization. Now, this report comes in as the State of Climate report across Africa. Well, there is a lot that has been covered in this report, and what we are looking at is actually devastating effects of climate change. What can we say about this report? Now, it says that the rate of temperatures has increased higher than the global average, and we are looking at only Africa. This is one of the most vulnerable continents across the world, and the report is showing that we are at higher temperatures than global average. But also looking more into what the report is covering is more about what is the implications of this report. Looking at food security, looking at increase in humanitarian assistance in Africa, but mostly we have had a lot of drought cases, we have had landslides, we have had floods. We have had floods that are making communities more vulnerable to the changing weather patterns. So the report is just adding to the facts that we already feared. And this is something that we have looked at in the past, even in our daily reports here. But also one thing that the report highlighted are the melting glaciers on our precious mountains. Now, one of them is actually Mount Kenya, where we have also over time seen glaciers melting, and also Rwenzori Mountains in Uganda. Now, if you look at the coverage of what we've had across Mount Rwenzori, over time, we have had at least enough coverage for glaciers. And this has been a contribution to our tourism sector. Tourists come from all over the world to look at these glaciers. But with climate change, with all these changing weather patterns, we have seen that these glaciers have melted away. And a lot of that is to do with the rise in temperatures across the continent, not just Uganda. And the fact that we had kept these glaciers even when we are across the equator should show you that we have had stable temperatures. But now there is a contribution from human activities, and we're looking at more of this happening. Maybe by 2050 we could actually be looking at more melting, and we could lose these glaciers. And at the current rates, the report is showing that we could be deglaciated by 2040. That's not long from now. We could be looking at situations where we no longer even have such glaciers to attract tourists. So this is something that is actually worrying. Well, away from the report, we want to take a look ahead into the weather that is expected across East Africa for the coming days. Now, what we're looking at is exceptional rainfall, and this is coming in from our prediction center for the region, that is ICPAC, showing that western Uganda, southwestern Uganda, and also part of western Lake Victoria Basin is likely to have exceptional rains. Now, I want you to note the fact that where you see the blue colors, these are the only regions that we do expect rainfall to be above average. Now, other areas will be experiencing rainfall, but we are seeing exceptional rains that are in the forecast for that area. Now, adding to that, we also look at a report that was given out yesterday from the Uganda National Meteorological Authority that is talking about the same. There is a heavy rainfall alert, and that is also coming in. That is starting from 19th. It was issued yesterday, and it is going up to 22nd of October. Now, feared is there is going to be moderate to heavy rains, and it is to a 35 to 70% chance of occurrence. Now, this is also talking about the southwestern part of the country, that is Kabale, Kisoro, Kasese, Masindi, and mostly the western part of Lake Victoria. This report actually coincides with what ICPAC has given us. And some of the advisory that is coming in from the authority is like people living in landslide-prone areas, especially in Kabale, Kisoro, and Kasese, and other hilly areas, should be on the lookout for cracks on the ground and take necessary measures to safeguard their lives. Now, what happens is that with continued rainfall, you will be looking at possibilities of the land getting weaker, and that is when you start to see cracks. So after the rain clears, make sure that, especially local authorities, make sure that you do check on these mountainous areas to see if there are cracks. And should there be cracks, what do you do then? This is where you call for evacuation. This is where you call for people to be alert. And well, from that, we'll go ahead and take a look at our forecast for this morning, but still we want to continue warning you about these likely events. We could be looking at more rainy conditions, especially for southwestern Uganda. It's not the first time that we're seeing such instances. Well, in our forecast for this morning, taking a look at the central Lake Victoria Basin, we do have Mukono, Kampala, Entebbe and Wakiso. We are forecasting those rains coming your way, starting off with a cool morning at 23 degrees centigrade, and that system is likely to continue into the afternoon. Do look out for that. Now, for southwestern Uganda, that is across Mbarara, Ibanda, we do have Bushenyi, Rubirizi. We are looking at a rainy morning as well that will be across several places, starting off with a cool 25 degrees centigrade. Now, the eastern part of Central, where we have Ruwero, Woblenzi, Bururi, Nakaseke, we are forecasting isolated rains as well. Those will be across several places, starting off at a pleasant 26 degrees centigrade, quite cooler than what we had yesterday morning across that area. Now we look at eastern Uganda, where we have Soroti, we have Kataku, we have Amoria and Kumi. We are looking at a rainy morning as well, starting off with a warm morning at 27 degrees centigrade. That system is also likely to continue into the afternoon, and that could still maintain temperatures within the upper 20s for that area. Now we look at more into our forecast for this morning, especially the northwestern part of the country. That is also expected to have more wet weather conditions, but also again across northern Uganda starting to develop those rains. But we are looking at a clear day, especially for the Karamoja region and parts of eastern Uganda for now. You can enjoy that, but remember, eastern Uganda has those rains coming your way. You can prepare for that. Well, I want to leave you at that. Later, we do have Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up. Robert will be here to take you through that. And then we'll look at the sports updates with Ruben. My name is Molen Kenyana. I want to wish you a good morning.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by
Authentically symbolic and insightful.
We should work so hard to evacuate this power.
Behind the headlines, every Wednesday at 10 p.m. with Charles Odongto.
How to get points. Just use MTN to make calls, send SMS, load airtime, buy bundles, or pay for MTN subscription services.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Welcome to the home of our stars. Come on in. We have our movies, gossip, reality, conflict, tulinane comedy. Basirebo baffe bonna live right here, because no matter where you go, this is the home of our stars.
This year, as Power Magic Mix 3, we are delighted to invite you to see, experience, and celebrate with us. Power Magic, the home of our stars. Multi-Choice Uganda is regulated by the Uganda Communications Commission.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way, because we are all different, even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body, because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
We are here to launch this facility. We've launched it. I am appealing to you, our staff, don't make this a white elephant. We want it operational, running, and functional.